there's no question that there was a project called Project Mockingbird. And it's interesting because when I started using the phrase Mockingbird Media, and you know what was funny about filling in for Rushell this year, God rest you, Maha, was when you say something like that to an audience at that level, you'll start to hear it repeated back. And I remember I was ego surfing one day when I did that. Praise God for taking that away from me. Just what did people think of the show today on Rush's show? And I saw this phrase, Todd Herman came up with this great term, Mockingbird Media, and someone immediately wrote back and said, oh, he didn't invent that. He knows there was a Project Mockingbird. I was like, no, I don't. So I looked it up. And you probably know about it. It's the CIA working with Hollywood to make sure that the CIA either controls or has influence over Hollywood. So I had this big question about how long has this been happening and how bad is it? So I started to do a little research, and I came across a guy named Udo Ukofte, and he wrote a book, Journalists for Hire, How the CIA Buys the News. Man, I'd love to read that book. So I went to go try to buy it. You can't. Not available. So I'm probably going to post an ad online to buy it from somebody. And I'm in touch with their publisher to try to get them to talk about this. So what's in this book that they don't want us to see? Well, I reached out to try to get the journalist on. But there's a really weird thing that happened. Can you guess what it was? We'll talk about this with the help of our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@the-Todd-Herman-Show, and under the mercy and endless supply of God Almighty.
The Todd Herman Show is 100% disapproved by big pharma, technocrats, and tyrants everywhere. No. From the high mountains of free America, here's the Emerald City exile, Todd Herman.
Today is the day the Lord has made, and these are the times to which God has decided we shall live. Got distracted thinking about all this. I forgot to mention that Zach Abraham has his first free live webinar of the year coming up. It's going to be Thursday, January 30th. And you can register for that. It's free. It's knowyourriskradio.com. My apologies. I just was researching, and I just had this question of how long has the Mockingbird Media been under the control of the CIA? How bad is it? So when I was digging into this, I came across this journalist, and frankly, it was just a YouTube search. I went down that rabbit hole, and sometimes that's fun, where I was watching Project Mockingbird stuff, and eventually you cross the line into wait, so Jim Morrison's dad, the lead singer and lyricist of The Doors, his dad was an admiral and a CIA op, and he was in MK Ultra, and he was involved in the disappearance of a ship that the Navy succeeded in using an energy weapon to port into a different timeline. Yeah, I know. Some of that, like, as much as I believe, and I know our government's willing to do anything to us, that's evident. I mean, they are breaking God's law in every fashion, up to and including lording their power over others, etc. We're a fallen species, man. We need God every minute of the day. But I don't know that I'm ready for they disappeared a ship. And there's a movie that's kind of related to that. The ship is transported and the men are changed, but there is then you wind back up to the top of this, and there is reason to believe that Jim Morrison's dad was hooked up CIA-like. And there's the whole Laurel Canyon experiment. If you don't know about that, that was LSD and the CIA. Now, we know that the CIA did mind control experiments on people. I mean, they had to admit this. There were Freedom of Information Act requests that we talked about. They finally, and it was years that they drug their feet. And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The results came out, yeah, we did that. To Americans and Canadians. We drugged them without their consent. We informed mind control experiments on them, but don't worry, they were safe and effective. So what exactly would stop them from owning the news? There's far too much lockstep. And in a competitive media environment, there should be competition. And I can wind this all the way back into my personal experience of meeting these families whose kids were on the verge of being medically kidnapped because they were concerned that these kids had become confused about their bodies. And medical technocrats had leapt in and say, hey, we got some pills and some surgery that'll help you with that. And I went and spoke to investigative reporters, 3 of them from the 3 major television stations in Seattle and from the sister station of ours, Cairo Radio. Every single investigative reporter said, we can't talk about this. We're not allowed. A former colleague of mine, and I will not give up her name, I would say that she's a senior news executive. She was initially interested in the story. One of her reporters wanted to do the story. A reporter took a meeting with a bunch of families, read a bunch of paperwork, interviewed parents, had the story locked. And then my former friend came along and she squashed the story by saying this: all the parents have to identify themselves. And we said they can't. This would put CPS on them. Sorry, we're not telling the story. They use confidential sources all the time. Now, that was local media, but the same thing was true of national media. And of course, we all know the examples by heart. The laptop from hell. Safe and effective. Safest, most secure. Russian plant. We all know them by heart. But how deep is this? I was just talking with someone the other day who's in a position to know. And it really saddens me because there's a hat I have. In fact, there's 2 of them. My wife gave me a replacement version. And it's a movie made by a Navy SEAL based on a book by a Navy SEAL. And you guys may have seen me wear that hat. I talked to a guy the other day who's in a position to know. And the talk in Teamland, and he's the 3rd or 4th guy to say this to me. The talk in Teamland is that never happened. That Navy SEAL was handed that story by the Pentagon, probably constructed by the CIA to say, hey, here's how you're going to explain this op. And it became a major bestseller as a book and as a movie. So let's dig into this book, Journalists for Hire, How the CIA Buys the News, in the only way that we can. Part of an interview the author gave. Well, before he died shortly after the book came out. He was a young man. Died. Suddenly. You know. None of us, I think, want to die suddenly. I mean, there are those of us who want the Lord Jesus to come suddenly. That's me. I'm ready to go home. I don't understand Christians who aren't ready to go home. Of course, I'd miss my family, but I'd see them again. They'd be joining me. But a lot of us want to live as long as we can. Not me. Maybe that's you. I do want to be functional while I live. I do want to be able to enjoy movement while I live. I do not want to be laying in a hospital bed at the age of 60 on my 4th or 5th surgery. I really don't want pharma to get in touch with me or get a hold of me. I really don't want that. But insurance is insurance. And they only pay for certain things. So I've heard people come to me and talk about Renew.Healthcare in Mexico. Look, I really want to go. I just, insurance won't cover it. You know what else insurance won't cover? Eating well. Gym memberships. Competitions. They won't cover having a home gym. They won't give you a write-off for that. They won't cover things like, anything that truly heals you. Surgery can fix things, but it can't heal. So you know what's super expensive? Being hobbled your whole life and being addicted to drugs your whole life and screwed up surgeries. Anytime your body's cut open, the integrity suffers. So you really need to do the math. So why not get in touch with Renew.Healthcare if you're facing surgery, lower lumbar, you're facing things for like carpal tunnel. They're saying they need to get in there and scrape the tunnel through which your tendon operates. You're facing knee replacements or cartilage surgery. The ethically gathered stem cells at Renew.Healthcare can often cure all of this stuff, and I mean cure it. None of this comes from abortions. It's from placentas and umbilical cords only. Steve and Jim and Andy and Adam and the entire gang down there couldn't wait to talk to you. Dr. Chavez, a Harvard-certified surgeon who did my injections, and he'll probably do yours, couldn't wait to help you. Go to Renew.Healthcare, and they will tell you if they can help you. Please tell them you're part of the Todd Herman Show family. It's RENUE.Healthcare. And you could say, best kept secret? Not really. People in the know. You really think Aaron Rodgers healed that quickly? Just by using elastic bands and food? He's not allowed to talk about things like stem cells because the NFL won't let them. But I'll let you in on a little secret. There's NFL players who go to Renew. So in my research, I came across this journalist, and this is a little bit of what he did, or an interview he gave after the book came out. And then sadly, suddenly, shockingly, he died.
I've been a journalist for about 25 years, and I was educated to lie, to betray, and not to tell the truth to the public. Most of the journalists you see in foreign countries, they claim to be journalists, and they might be journalists, European or American journalists, but many of them, like me in the past, are so-called non-official cover. That's what the Americans call that. I have been a non-official cover. Non-official cover means what? It means you too work for an intelligence agency. You help them if they want you to help them. They will never say, oh, this was one of our guys. They will not know you. That means non-official cover. Germany is still a kind of a colony of the United States. You see that in many points, like the majority of the Germans don't want to have nukes in our country, but we still have American nukes. So we are still a kind of a colony of the Americans. And being a colony, it is very easy to approach young journalists through what is very important here is transatlantic organizations. What they do, these transatlantic organizations, is they invite you for seeing the United States. They pay for that. They pay all your expenses and everything. So you are bribed. You get more and more corrupt because they make you good contacts. Sometimes the intelligence agencies, they come to your office. The BND, this German Foreign Intelligence Agency, came to my office at the Frankfurter Allgemeine in Frankfurt. And they wanted me to write an article about Libya and about Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. I had absolutely no secret informations regarding Colonel Muammar Gaddafi and Libya. But they gave me all these secret informations, and they just wanted me to write, to sign the article with my name. I did that, but it was an article that was published in the Frankfurter Allgemeine that originally came from the Bundesnachrichtendienst, from the German Foreign Intelligence Agency. So do you really think that this is journalism, intelligence agencies writing articles?
The intelligence agencies are always looking for people they can use. And I've shared with you this story before of being, I was such a stupid bunny, not really realizing I was being sucked in to a CIA front company. One of the people who talked to me, and he's a good guy, I love the guy, but talked me into going back to D.C., saw how the committee was just fighting tooth and nail to stop Realtek. We finally won that battle for 2 years, and then they destroyed the Realtek we built because they wanted their corrupt consultants to get back in the door. So he offered me this job at his company, high paying, big contract. I could live at home, travel to D.C., live at home. At that time, I was in Seattle. And I met with their board. And then I was sitting there at night, and I just woke up in this cold sweat. Wait a minute. This guy just took me to the funeral for the deposed Shah of Iran. He said it would be a heck of a thing to see. Most people don't get to go. And I'm like, I don't have any love for the deposed Shah of Iran, but okay, that's fascinating. I'll go. Wait a minute. He owns an airfield in Iraq, an airport. He owns an airport in Iraq. Wait a minute. They brought American media into Iraq, and he wanted me to help them figure out how to bring even more American media into more hands. How could we get mobile devices in the hands of the people? I realized what was going on, and I texted him, we need to meet in the morning. And he gave me a breakfast location. I said, no, we need to walk through the park. So I met him. We went walking. And I said, you work for the CIA. And this is a quote. He looked at me and said, well, champ, we don't talk a lot about that. So, yes. Well, there's a lot to that. I'm out. Okay. And I was a nobody. But if you take a whole bunch of nobodies with a whole bunch of influence and then you make them somebodies, now it adds up. Like, say, a Navy SEAL who served the country honorably, and I do not want to believe this about this person, given what he did, who he is. But the chatter is too consistent in Team World. So here's a way I kind of measure. You know them by their fruits. You'll also know a man by his enemies. So in a second, I want to share with you what it says about this journalist in Wikipedia, which should be instructive, given that Wikipedia has become a left-leaning organization, or maybe even a leftist organization, maybe even completely co-opted. And I'm going to play you some sound from Larry Sanger, who is one of the Wikipedia co-founders. And he has an opinion on how the site went woke. It went woke. Well, I'll let you hear him say this. I woke up this morning at, 3:30, 6.5 hours of sleep, solid sleep. Last night was youth group, so I got home really late, and I didn't eat enough when I went to bed. I did use my sleep protocol, so I slept completely through the 6.5 hours. I didn't get up at all. And before going to bed, I added something to my sleep protocol, and that is wisdom. So I've been taking this at night, really around 5 or 6 o'clock, to kind of just come down from the day. I use so much caffeine, and my job is really about being on brain-wise all day. And wisdom is a biblically based herbal blend of spices and herbs, 6 of them, I believe. And you can read them at trywisdomnow.com/Todd. They'll show you the ingredients. And this was all formulated because the doctor who invented this product, Dr. Jen Tempo, was in the Holy Lands in Israel. And as he was walking in the footsteps of Jesus, he was praying, and he was in the Word. And he kept seeing these references to spices and herbs. And he does a podcast, by the way, called Christ Revealed. So this is not happenstantial. He seeks the Lord. And he was inspired. The Bible's all over these herbs. So he started to experiment and then finally locked in this formula. And the wisdom formula is made in small batches. It's cold brewed. They use sound waves and light waves to lock in the potency so that when you have it, it's fresh. It delivers mental clarity, calmness. It helps harness inflammation on your side. It helps with your immune system. And I began taking it about 5 or 6 o'clock last night on the way home. By the way, I take my toothbrush with me when I go out late. My wife thinks it's so insane. It's like it's one step I don't need to do when I get home on a night where I'm going to get 6 to 6.5 hours of sleep. So I took this wisdom, and then I brushed my teeth, and I got home. And man, did I sleep well. You can try Wisdom Now by going to trywisdomnow.com/Todd. You will get 33% off when you stock up on wisdom at trywisdomnow.com/Todd. You'll get free shipping and a 180-day money-back guarantee. That's trywisdomnow.com/Todd. Here's what Wikipedia says about Udo Ukofolte. I don't know. It's German. Sue me. Udo Constantijn Ukofolte, 20 January 1960, 13 January 2017. Hey, that's right, the same year his book was published. He died in the same year his book was published. He didn't look all that unhealthy to me. Did he look that unhealthy to you? Was a German journalist and author who worked for the German main daily newspaper, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, from 1986 until 2003. From the end of the 1990s, he wrote several bestsellers and increasingly advocated right-wing, populist, Islamophobic, and conspiracy theory positions. He said that journalists, including himself and leading newspapers, published material that had been fed to them or bought by the CIA and other Western intelligence propaganda agencies. So I wonder what a right-wing, populist, Islamophobic, and conspiracy theory position might be. Among them, why are we having mass immigration? Why are we importing a whole bunch of Islamists into Western countries? Why are we being pressured to have open borders policies? And incidentally, on the topic of it being a conspiracy theory that the CIA is involved in media, we can go right back to Project Mockingbird, which is real. That happened. You can go back to the fact that the CIA and the Pentagon still have to approve books written by people, former military, who had certain job positions, anything in special forces. And to a degree, that makes sense. Sources and methods. But we can also go to this, the constructing of narrative. That happened. The most powerful tool the propagandistic Mockingbird media has is the propaganda of silence. Absolutely the most powerful tool. I go right back to Project Cassandra. I think it was 7 to 10 named intelligence officials, actively working in intelligence, and they said, you could use our names. And they talked to the Politico, and they said, we have been spending the past many years undercover working with our international partners to identify, name, find, and get the ability to target, capture, or kill Taliban leaders who are partnering with Mexico-based narco-terrorists to bring into America, over, under, through our border and across. They were ready to make arrests. The indictments had been written. The DOJ was informed. The FBI, the CIA worked together on this. MI5, MI6, all the international agencies worked together. They had the indictments written, the search warrants ready to go, the arrest papers, and then they took it to the White House. And Barack Hussein Obama and Joe Biden said, no. They obstructed justice. You will not continue. You will allow them to continue to ship into our country. That's all written in Project Cassandra. You will allow them to continue to flood our streets with. Why? Well, they didn't want to disrupt the so-called peacemaking process with the Taliban. And there's good reason to believe that the Taliban, like ISIS, was a creation of the CIA to destabilize the Middle East. I asked a very good veteran news reporter who has since died. He was a very unhealthy man. And I asked him about this one day, about Project Cassandra. How is this not incredibly big news? How this was they talk about obstruction of justice with Trump. I mean, this was a president and vice president who said, do not arrest these terrorists. Let them keep doing this. And what Dan told me was this. He said, there are times on a really big story like that the intelligence services will get in touch with us and say, you're not going to cover this. You'll put America at risk. You'll put sources and methods at risk. You'll embolden the terrorists. I said, so why do they obey that? Because they give us a carrot. You can't have that story, but you can have this one. And they'll give us an exclusive. Back when CNN was getting started, Ted Turner used to flood that network with what are called VNRs, video news releases. You know what they were? News stories. Really slickly made news stories. He didn't have to pay reporters to create them. He just put them on CNN. Want to know who made them? Chinese Communist Party. Here's how great China is. You think the CIA doesn't make things like that? We'll get back to this Wikipedia thing, but a reminder that they are willing to do anything to us. There was a secret brainwashing experiment. Former patients are suing the U.S. government about this. I'll show you this in just a second because it goes right back to what we talked about last week. This Freedom of Information Act stuff showing us that the government was more than happy to drug people against their will and without their knowledge, and then to watch what happened to them. They're lording their power over others. God warned us, this is what human kings will do to you. God warned us, you can tell them by their fruits. Are we seeing their fruits? Do we see the fruits of division that they've created in our country, the fruits of debt? Do we see the veritable slavery of generations of people who may not be able to afford an apartment? They're willing to do anything. And yet the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. The darkness cannot understand it, cannot overcome it. There are spots of light everywhere. You know, when I go to my youth group, I see sparks of light. Really interesting, a few weeks ago, there was pretty major happening, and I want to be very careful here because I'm just going to be very careful. And it happened that a student I knew was involved in this a few weeks ago. It was pretty serious, and he and I had a side conversation at youth group, pulled him out of the group, and we sat and we talked for an hour. And it's so funny because I looked across the building, and there was one of my female colleagues talking to one of the young women involved. And when they got done talking, the young woman got up and gave this lady a hug. When I got done talking with this young man, he got up and he gave me a bro hug. Spots of light. We look for those things, and when I find a way that we can have spots of light in products we buy, I'm all over it. I consider Allen Soaps to be a spark of light in an otherwise dark world. Because of the mission. The mission is much greater than the soap, although the soap has to be stellar because the mission is stellar. The mission is to employ a bunch of young people who the party would rather see stored in a box. And they're succeeding. We started with one young person, now we have 3. So the soap has to be excellent, otherwise the mission breaks. So there's a family, and they've been doing this for 1, 2, 3 generations. What is that? 200 years making soap. And they don't use any chemicals. It's all natural. And there are fragrances that are unique to the mind of Allen, who is the young man, the namesake of the company. He's not a mascot. He works there. He does packaging. He does product safety. He does quality control. So Allen is the namesake. There's Ian and there's Amy that work there. And I see it as a spot of light in an otherwise really, really dark world. And I think it's unique that you can clean the temple with something that is a spot of light. Or you can continue to use soap from big companies who don't care about your values. So make a quick decision. In other words, acknowledge, adjust, adapt. Go to allensoaps.com/Todd. That's allensoaps.com/Todd. You'll get 10% off all their products there. There's not just soap. There's loofahs. Isn't that what that's called? That thing that you scrape your face with so all the dead skin. It's a loofah or oofka or some, what? Is it a loofah? Producer Access, it's a loofah. I trust Producer Access. It's a loofah. There's soap racks. All of it super high quality. allensoaps.com/Todd and pick up a loofah, I guess it's called. I have a loofah at home. I realized that when I just rubbing soap on my face, I'm not really cleaning my face. And now I'm completely distracted. So in my research, looking into how long has this all been going on, what is the CIA not willing to do, and the intelligence services not willing to do, looking again into MK Ultra, I came across this. It's a documentary series called The Fifth Estate, and it's discussing a lawsuit. Former patients are suing the U.S. government because of a nasty little, mind control experiment.
Good evening. I'm Eric Malling. 9 Canadians who were the unwitting victims of CIA brainwashing experiments are suing the United States government. But so far, the Canadian government has done nothing to help them.
If I were in charge of a government to whom 9 citizens that we are suing for have been brainwashed without their knowing, have had their lives impaired, and have it done by a foreign agency, undercover without the government of Canada knowing it, I would find a way to help those people instead of hindering them.
4 years ago, there were some startling revelations about the activities of the CIA in Canada. The American Intelligence Agency had paid for a series of brainwashing experiments under a project codenamed MK Ultra. The tests were conducted in secret in the United States and in Canada at a mental hospital attached to McGill University. Experimental drugs, including LSD, were administered to human guinea pigs. The patients were never told that their treatment was part of a CIA experiment. 9 Canadians are now suing the U.S. government for $1 million apiece. They charge that their lives were disrupted forever as a result of the brainwashing. Despite the fact that the CIA operated secretly in Canada to fund these medical experiments on Canadian citizens, the federal government in Ottawa has joined hands with the government in Washington to hold back vital information which might at last reveal all the sordid details.
It's a 7-year-old documentary. It's funny, that never made big news here. CNN isn't a news organization, and they sure seem to me to be controlled. Jim Sciutto from CNN tweeted, "We still do fact-checking," and he's responding to something President Trump said. "Fact check as wildfires rage. Trump lashes out with false claims about FEMA in California. Lashes out like a whip, tearing the skin of people and laughing as he does it. Literally Orange Hitler." His false claims were things like California didn't have water on hand, which is true. FEMA is prioritizing California over North Carolina. Also true. So many people on Twitter responded with something back to CNN's Jim Sciutto. And it's a simple headline for the New York Post. Prisoner CNN free from Syrian prison was actually a notorious Assad regime torturer. They play acted. A so-called reporter play acted. And we played the video on this show where she walked into a cell. "Oh my gosh, is there someone in here? Oh, there's something on the floor over there. It looks like someone covered with a blanket. Hello? Oh, it's not. Hello? Oh, what if he's hello? Oh, it's a man! And he's alive!" And the guy gets up. "Oh, the sunlight. Oh, and he's looking up at the sun. "Oh, no, save me!" And then you look at him, and his teeth are perfectly white. His hair is combed and styled. He is shaved better than I am today. No dirt under his fingernails. Clothes are clean. And she knew she was play acting. Did CNN come up with that? Given their heritage, remember the video news releases? Some of the agreements they've made with Iraq during the Desert Storm. We won't say bad things about Iraq if you let us into Baghdad. Here's how this might have gone down. The Pentagon, or let's say a CIA official sheep dipped into the Pentagon, going to a CNN producer saying, "You want to be the first ones in the prison? You want an exclusive story of a prisoner being freed? There's some things we're going to need you to do, like pretend this is real." But we do have independent media, and that's true, praise God. Is Wikipedia independent? I don't think so. I think they're very leftist controlled. One of the co-founders of Wikipedia, Larry Sanger, talked about how his site went woke.
Introduced the neutrality policy before Wikipedia was even conceived of, and then Wikipedia inherited it from Nupedia. Wikipedia made a real effort at neutrality for, I would say, its first 5 years or so, and then it became, well, it began a long, slow slide into what I would call leftist propaganda. I mean, it's a harsh description to put on Wikipedia, but at least a lot of the political articles read that way now. But that's because they follow the news media, at least they have done in the last 10 years or so, 10 or 15 years. They've gradually gotten rid of all of blogs, and then more recently they've gotten rid of almost all conservative news sources as sources for their articles. And so as the news media has shifted, and as the establishment, frankly, has shifted more to the left, the content of Wikipedia has followed suit. It would have been hard for me to accept that this would happen and that it would be so striking. Even 10 years ago, I mean, already there was this decline into a slide to a center-left point of view by 2010.
That's from the Epoch Times America's Thought Leaders. Now, the media didn't slide left. Leftism too quickly expanded the Overton window. They got full of themselves. The demons either got super desperate, knowing their time is short, or they got super arrogant, thinking they were winning. So they started getting more and more bizarre and insane, and things like defund the police, this whole gender madness, clear, evident lies about Hunter Biden, etc., clear, evident lies about the cognitive ability of figurehead Biden. And it became so insane that people, they went too fast. And the existence of things like podcasting, the existence of things like Twitter that is now better under Musk, who's not a free speech absolutist or anything like that, but the ability for people to see things on, let's say, Facebook, though they're banned, or talk radio, and much of talk radio is still free speech, although you'd be surprised to what degree many of your favorite shows have some control factors. They're called left-right limits. That's the euphemism. There's things we don't say. For instance, many of your favorite hosts are not allowed to say the election was stolen. They're not allowed to suggest it was stolen. They're not allowed to even play with the idea, just so you know that. But independent media allowed people to have a measuring stick, which is why the establishment, the Mockingbirds, and many Republicans, along with figurehead Biden, are absolutely panicked that Mark Zuckerberg is deciding to do away with so-called fact checkers and go to a community notes model. We'll talk about that, but we'll begin that with the sociopathic dictator of California, Gavin Newsom, who goes around lying to the face of panicked women. Governor Newsom, please, what are you going to do? I'm literally on the phone with the president right now, trying to get, please, can I hear him? Because I don't believe you. Well, I'm not on the phone with him right now because I don't have signal, but you just so sociopathic. So we'll get to that in a second. I mentioned earlier this wisdom product I take to relax into sleep, and I'd added it to a sleep protocol. So this is a relaxation for me. It's mental focus. It's clarity. What I don't get from it is what I get from Magnesium Breakthrough, which is why I have combined the two. So Magnesium Breakthrough, when I take that now, and I can now take it an hour before bed. It used to be 2 hours because Matt and Wade have updated the formula, so it's now more dissolvable and more bioavailable. I've never had anything surprise me the way Bioptimizer's Magnesium Breakthrough does. I've been taking it for years, but every time I take it, I continue to be surprised that I get this warm feeling. It's almost bizarre because it's not a drug. It's magnesium. It's 7 forms of magnesium, full spectrum organic magnesium, this type that you cannot buy in any of the China marts. I take it and I feel this warmth. And then I just get this relaxation. And I know that it's helping me with regularity in the background, stress control by regulating the stress hormone cortisol. I know that that cortisol stress hormone causes your body to hold on to fat because it believes your body's in a fight or flight method time. So it's a different product and additive. And it also is available for you, particularly if you have problems staying sleeping through the night. Here's my suggestion. Go to Biooptimizers, take Magnesium Breakthrough, but stack it with Sleep Breakthrough. That product stack to me is undefeated in delivering sleep on nights where I know it's going to be hard. Say I'm traveling or I've given a late night speech and I'm just juiced before bed. So go to biooptimizers.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd to get 10% off all their products. Now, when you subscribe, not only are you going to get special exclusive discounts, special exclusive free gifts from Biooptimizers, you won't run out of product. My suggestion, Magnesium Breakthrough stacked with Sleep Breakthrough. Biooptimizers.com/Todd, promo code Todd. Here's Gavin Newsom. While California was still burning, people were still dying, there was no water, structures were still down, that nothing was contained, 0% containment. Gavin Newsom took time out of his day to get in a firefighting truck, get on a fireproof suit, put on the mask and the oxygen tank, and start sprinting into houses, spraying them with hairspray. Just kidding. He was just chatting with figurehead Biden, and they were doing some play acting for the benefits of the people.
I ask you, we've got to deal with this misinformation. There were hurricane force winds of mis and disinformation, lies. People want to divide this country, and we're going to have to address that as well. And it breaks my heart as people are suffering and struggling that we're up against those hurricane forces as well. And that's just a point of personal privilege that I share that with you because it infects real people that are out there, people I meet every single day, people the mayor's been meeting with, and they're having conversations that are not the typical conversations you'd have at this time. And you wonder where this stuff comes from. And it's very damaging as well. But we're here to get the job done.
I'm literally on the phone right now with the president getting you this help. I'm literally on the phone with the president. Really? Can I hear him? Can I hear the conversation? Because I don't believe you. Well, he wasn't on the phone with her, with the president, Biden. He lied to her face. That was his instinct. You had Adam Schiff, the disgraced now senator from California, saying the reservoirs were full. No, there's film of the Palisades Reservoir, which holds 117 million gallons of water, being empty. No, they weren't full, but the disinformation. Gavin Newsom, by the way, is now saying that looting will not be tolerated. He's the governor who made looting legal. Now saying it won't be tolerated. Well, in Brentwood. I mean, downtown LA, who cares? South Central, who cares? Those people don't have any money. So Gavin Newsom wants disinformation fought, and he wants Biden to pressure people to fight it. Mark Zuckerberg talked to Joe Rogan, and they talked about disinformation, and I'm not one that believes that Zuckerberg has exactly turned around. But he's showing signs of this. And Biden, the figurehead, hearing these rumors, then we'll get to the videos of Zuckerberg and what he said. Biden's people telling him, hey, Zuckerberg's he's not going to be our play toy anymore. Here's figurehead Biden.
Let's take a listen.
Of walking away from fact checking, as well as not reporting anything having to do with discrimination regarding to TPS, I find to be just contrary to American justice, the way we talk about one.
I never had a business meeting with my son's business partners. Hunter's the kindest, smartest man I've ever known. I never met a business partner of his. I didn't know he had a business. It was my understanding that he was a male nurse at an AIDS clinic in Rhode Island. My son, Bo, was AIDS, invented a cure for that, before he invented a cure for cancer, and then started a trucking company with a chimpanzee.
So they trot this old sleeping figurehead out. And that's his response when Zuckerberg says things like this with Joe Rogan. Talked about people like Biden and Biden himself screaming at them.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse. And we just said, no, we're not going to take down humor and satire. We're not going to take down things that are true.
But you did.
And then at some point, I don't know, it flipped a bit. I mean, Biden, when he gave some statement at some point, I don't know if it was a press conference or to some journalists, where he basically was like, these guys are killing people. Then like all these different agencies and branches of government basically just like started investigating and coming after our company. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Wow.
Man, that's so scary. That's super like hard. Very scary. Because, I mean, who would ever have the resources to defend themselves against the government? You'd have to have millions of dollars to defend yourself against the government. No one has millions of dollars except for people like Mark Zuckerberg, who has 30 billion. So on one hand, praise God. I mean, on all hands, praise God. But praise God that Mark Zuckerberg is saying these things. And I didn't watch the full interview, but my question to Mark would be, why'd you give in? Why are you just saying this now? Oh, by the way, if Zuckerberg is truly repentant, he'll rebuild the 2 Facebook pages he destroyed of mine and of many other people. He'll rebuild it with interest. He'll reinstall the revenue stream that he stole from me for millions of dollars a year, but he won't. I don't know how repentant he truly is. I think he's scared. And he's scared probably for good reason. Because Zuckerberg had said that, yep, we were getting pressured. Now he's admitted this in public, and he can be brought in to testify about how often did you lie to the government, because his partner in crime, the disgraced and impeached traitor to this country, Alejandro Mayorkas. Oh, incidentally, the theme of the show? Hey, Mayorkas was telling media entities how to report on the border. Do you remember the whipping scandal? Where those Custom and Border Patrol agents were whipping migrants coming here for a better life? They were whipping them. Except they weren't. It was the bridles of horses. They were steering their horses away from the illegal immigrants running into our country so as to make sure the horse didn't trample them. That was fed out through the DHS. Mayorkas was one of the last, in fact, he's never admitted that was untrue. He's one of the few people to continue to say it was true. So here is Mayorkas lying under oath to Senator Josh Hawley.
Now, you said earlier this year that you disbanded the Disinformation Governance Board, which I thought was totally unconstitutional, but that turns out to be, at best, misleading. That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you're doing. Your own quadrennial review, which was just reported in the press, says that disinformation is going to be the new focus at DHS. The Quad Review says that DHS plans to target, I'm quoting now, inaccurate information domestically on a wide array of subjects, including, quoting, the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, racial justice, U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the nature of U.S. support for Ukraine. A federal judge has just found as a finding of fact, Mr. Secretary, that your office, and I'm going to quote now, is supervising the nerve center of federally directed censorship. Here's another email, August 20th, 2021. Facebook writes again to HHS and highlights that Facebook is increasing the strength of our demotions for COVID and vaccine-related content. April 16th, 2021, Rob Flaherty at the White House circulates a Zoom meeting invitation to Twitter employees stating White House staff will be briefed by Twitter on vaccine misinformation. We have example after example of this administration coordinated, apparently, according to a federal court, by your agency, pressuring, coercing social media companies to engage in censorship. Is that constitutional?
That is unequivocally false.
Is what the emails show.
It is unequivocally false, Senator.
You are not pressuring the big tech companies to take down accounts. You are not meeting with them to ask them to censor on your behalf.
That is correct. We are not.
Mr. Secretary, it has been established for years in this country, as you very well know because you're a lawyer, that the federal government may not use private third parties to engage in activities that are unconstitutional. That's exactly what you and this administration are doing. You are leveraging private companies to carry out censorship on your behalf. It's dystopian, but worse than that, it's unconstitutional.
It's also false.
Yeah, and he should be in prison with a lot of other people. So how long has it been going on? There's this book that none of us can buy unless you have a copy and want to let me borrow it. I guess I'll send you a deposit to make sure you get it back. And it's a book that a guy wrote, a journalist for hire, how the CIA buys the news, and then he died. Suddenly. And if you're watching the video service, look at that face. Not yours, Alex. Yours is fine. Look at the Honorable Alejandro Mayorkas. Utter disdain, contempt, and arrogance. And he's not going to bow for anybody. Asterisk. Every knee will bow, and every tongue will confess. Everything whispered in the dark will one day be shouted from the rooftop. Alley. This is the Todd Herman Show. Please go be well, be strong, be kind, and please make every effort to walk in the light of Christ.